Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cyclone Fanatic Halftime Show presented by the Iowa Pork Producers. We love pork over here at Cyclone Fanatic and we're so thankful for their continued support. I'm your host, Leah Nelson, and we've got Jeff Woody coming in, stepping in for Chris Williams. So we're super excited for that. We'll bring him in a little bit. And we're in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. Cincinnati and Iowa State are tied at half, 10-10. So once we pick Jeff's brain, but before we get to that, let's thank a few of our sponsors. We got Carl Auto Group. They have been a sponsor of Cyclone Fanatic for nearly 10 years, and they have locations all over. So make sure you go to them for all of your vehicle needs. We know you've got them. You got to visit carlautogroup.com today. And our friends over at Central States Roofing, they have been a locally owned business for nearly 56 years and counting. They specialize in commercial roofing with places all over like Des Moines, Ames, and Fort Dodge. So make sure you visit csroofing.com for more. All right, let's get into it. Come on, Jeff. It seems like people are really excited to see you. So thanks so much for joining us for this halftime show, stepping in for Chris Williams. But man, what are your initial vibes right off the rip? Game, atmosphere, play calling. Just give it to me.
Yeah, so offensively, it's like a D game right now. Defensively, they've actually been, outside of that first drive, which they did have to convert a fourth down to continue that drive. So defensively, they've been actually okay. Will McLaughlin being in makes a big difference. There were a couple plays where there was either running back or a quarterback that kind of was just about to pop one loose. And then McLaughlin was able to actually, because he's familiar with the defense, was actually able to get a stop. So the defense, I give them like a B- on average. They've given up a ton of rushing yards, but that's kind of what you can expect with these young linebackers. But the one thing that this game is tied, and I think the feeling is that everything's dying. The roof is on fire. It's all terrible, but it's a tie game. And if your offense has played a D- half, your defense has played okay, why is it still a tie game? Iowa State special teams have been really, really good. That's what kept them in the game. They've averaged, so on what the podcast that Mahoney and I do, we use a hidden yardage statistic. A quick and dirty description of that for those that aren't familiar with it is how far does one team have to go just to get to where the other team starts? So if I start my drive on the 50 and you start your drive on the 10, you have to gain 40 yards just to get to where I started. Iowa State right now has 100 yards of hidden yards. So they've started 100 yards closer to the end zone. So the statistics feel terrible. And the fact that Iowa State hasn't done anything offensively, they've got 24 rushing yards, and 15 of those I think are Aiden Flora on a draw. But special teams have been really good. And if you can, Campbell's going to talk about, I'm sure, in the postgame about complementary football. This has been really complementary football in that the offense has been bad, but the special teams has picked them up and the defense has held their own. So all in all, overall, not great, but it's a tie game. You play a not great half and it's still a tie game. I think things are fine.
Right. So offense D-. How can we get that up to maybe a B? What adjustments can they make?
I think they have to. Right, Cincinnati's defensive line and linebackers are super aggressive downhill. So basically, what Cincinnati's total overall game plan is going to double cover 13, we're going to double cover 9, we're going to stop the run with everybody else. And that's why Gabe Burkle is the leading receiver right now, I think, on the day. Yeah, Gabe Burkle's 2 receptions for 42 yards because nobody bothers covering him. They're trying to cover Higgins and Knoll and stop the run with everybody else. So how do you beat that is someone else has to step up as an option. I think Carson Brown had a drop earlier. There's availabilities for other people to be able to do it. Rocco's doing okay, but the running game has to get a lot better too. So you have to find a third option to get them out of that all-out, everyone's triggering super fast downhill. So if you can throw the ball to someone else, this is one of those, every coach wants to say run to set up the pass. This is one that you can actually pass to set up the run, is you have to get those linebackers back on their heels a little bit more. You have to get the defensive line away from just crush the middle of the field and see what can happen. So to me, it's got to be a third option somewhere, whether that's Klotz or Burkle or Brown or Eli or somebody has to be the third option. And I don't know, it feels like can't play much worse as far as offensive line execution. So even if you go from terrible to okay in offensive line execution, this half should be much better for the offense.
Has there been anyone on offense or defense that has just made a big difference or you're keeping your eye on?
Easy. This is there's two guys, both on defense. Last week, number 95 was not present. Dom Orange makes a huge difference, especially because J.R. Singleton, I'm not sure what his status is. He did go to the locker room before halftime. It looks like it was an injury, the kind of upper arm, shoulder. So I can't expect him to play. But on the drive that set up Iowa State's, the punt to set up Iowa State's field goal, so Cincinnati's last offensive drive, he made all 3 tackles. 2 of them were for a loss. Huge. And then Will McLaughlin being, I already mentioned him, even if he's not making every single play, it gives guys like Rylan Barnes the ability to not have to play every snap, and he can learn a little bit from the sideline. So those 2 guys, to me, are the ones that have stood out so far. And then just offensively, they've got to block better, and there's got to be a third guy that shows up in the passing game to free up the other 2 and the running game.
So in your opinion, this start, although it doesn't seem too crazy, like you said, has been better than the last 2 games Iowa State has played?
Well, Iowa State's not down by 100 points, so
I love your honesty. I love your honesty.
Yeah. It's better. It's substantially better defensively. I would expect Cincinnati to make some adjustments and start throwing it a lot more. They're really testing Iowa State's run defense, and they've adjusted well. So I imagine the adjustment Cincinnati's going to make is a lot more play action, a lot more trying to stress the linebackers backwards and then bring them up. But yeah, it's you didn't give up 6 straight touchdown drives, so better than last week.
And this is a little silly, but what do you think about the grass? Everyone's slipping and sliding. They've been talking a lot about it on the game. So what does it look like from where you're sitting?
I played on this turf for 5 years. And when you're playing on grass, any grass gets wet sometimes because, like water falls from the sky. It's called rain. And when that happens, the ground is slipperier because it's wetter. And that happens for everybody. And there's grass anywhere, then that happens. And when you play on that field, you have to cut like the grass is slipperier. So you can't cut off your inside foot. You can't try and make these big giant moves like you can on turf. But that's true of any grass field. So is it the best field condition? It's November and it's been wet for the last 3 weeks. What do you expect it to be?
Exactly.
Are you familiar with how grass works, Cincinnati?
I'm glad you have that response because that's what I'm feeling. I'm like, obviously it's going to be slippery. Obviously you're going to be slipping and sliding. It's called making in-game adjustments. And you know that speaking from experience.
Also, I would imagine that the grass is roughly the same underneath one team and the other team. And so if it's slippery, it's sort of like saying, well, it rained and now it's bad. Well, it rained on them too. So the excuse that feels pretty excusey if I'm calling that out myself, but don't talk trash about our turf. Just saying.
Well, and one last question. So if everything goes right, Iowa State comes out hot, what are you hoping this game will be at the end?
I mean, it'd be great to get a shutout and score 100 points, but I think realistically, you can expect Iowa State to run the ball better than they have in the past, or in the first half. I think the defense has shown Cincinnati they can stop the run. So I think there will be more opportunities for turnovers in the second half than there were in the first half. So Iowa State's now gone. They didn't turn the ball over against Kansas. They didn't turn the ball over in the first half against Cincinnati because teams are trying to run the ball at Iowa State. They have shown enough, I think, that it's going to get Cincinnati to start putting it in the air more, which gives you more chances for turnovers. So if special teams keeps executing like they have and Cincinnati starts putting the ball in the air, then that's strip sack, that's interception, that's more opportunities for turnovers. And then offensively, again, just don't play a D-minus half, and you should be able to score at least a touchdown or 2 to be able to hopefully run away. I wouldn't say run away with this one, but to be able to execute enough to win the game.
Sounds like a plan to me. I think they can do it. But thanks so much, Jeff. You guys can catch us back here for the post-game show. Thanks again to all of our sponsors. We've got Iowa Pork Producers, Carl Auto Group, and Central States Roofing. Thanks for following, guys, and tune back in after the game.